And how incredible is it that the Creator decided to put my smoke detector system inside my memory bank? You know what that means? It's trying to keep me safe, right? Like, ooh, I touched that hot stove once, I'm not going to touch it again. Wow, it's too hot. But what happens is when our memory bank is full of difficult times or even trauma, we wind up having our smoke alarm go off. And our whole body gets this nervous system level alarm happening when actually we're safe and we didn't know it. And that can happen to all of us, but it especially happens to folks who've been through a lot of hard times. The last part of the brain, the thinking brain up here, right here, that is how I'm able to make good strategic decisions. It's my impulse control that allows me to sit on my carpet square and keep my hands and feet to myself so that I'm not messing with my neighbors while we're listening to something in preschool, right? This is my ability to decide I am going to do my homework and then I'm going to do the video game or hang out with my friends. It's also our ability to not push send on that email I wrote to my sister-in-law about the way she treated my mother-in-law. I wrote it, but I didn't send it to her, so my thinking brain was helping me out right there. But this is also all of our receptive and expressive language. In other words, my ability to hear you and my ability to tell you what I'm thinking too. And that really matters when we're talking about kids, but all of us, in terms of being able to hear directions, being able to make sense out of what you're trying to teach me. If my brain has gone offline or I've flipped my lid, I can't hear you, and instead what I hear is wah, 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 wah. So that's how one child can sit in the very same classroom at school and right beside another kid, and one kid is soaking in all this great teaching, and another child really truly isn't hearing it. And it's not their fault, but it is their reality. Okay? And that's true for us too. If we get discharged from the hospital, they tell you, bring somebody with you to get those nursing instructions about what to do on this drain or this medication or whatever, because we're not supposed to be able to hear and make sense of that and remember it because our brain's offline, right? All right, we're going to keep on rolling here. This is really cool. This fancy smoke detector I've got in there is registering threat, but it is also looking for safety. And I guarantee you the reason 70 plus kids are showing up here with Dale on Wednesday nights is because he has found a way to speak safety to the brain. And those youngins know, like, this is a pretty good place to be, and I can come as I am, who I am, and it's not just good, it's great, right? So I just want you to notice that you get to be safety whisperers in every one of your interactions. And it's okay that sometimes we won't be able to do that because we'll get offline or we'll flip our lid too, right? But when we do, we've got some tools that'll help it come back on. Very briefly, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but I just want to say this is some other incredible brain science that talks about the human threat response system. When we are in the face of something that feels uncomfortable or really distressing, all humans attempt to connect if we can. And if the human body and being cannot connect, every one of us will do some variation on fight or flight, which we're all familiar with. We've heard that fight, flight, or freeze expression over the years. But if we cannot fight or flee, every human being will wind up in freeze, submit, or collapse. And that's a continuum from life-saving to really life-saving, but those are just what the brain and body does to help us cope with a hard moment, all right? The only one of those where my brain's online is connect. All of those other ones, my brain is offline, and so I'm not able to drive safely or vote with clarity or learn the Word of God and remember it, or think straight about what I need to make a hard decision financially. It's not available to me in that moment. So our whole goal, and that's why this is a public health model, is that we want to live in a way that keeps our brain online or that notices there's no shame in this. This is human. We were made for this. But we got to bring it back online again. And the reason I chose to include this slide, even though I can't talk to you about it in depth unless you want to come to this 2-day training or have us bring it up here one day, is because connect is the whole deal. And that's what y'all are doing today. And that's why I'm so excited to be connected to Mitchell County and the way you're living, and to hear about the way your church is saying, you know what, we do have kids and parents that are living in fight and flight in a lot of different ways, not just fighting in the parking lot with your fist, but fight like being, comparing one child to another, or whining all the time and saying how much I don't like my life. Or maybe fight is, one-upping one another, or judgment, right? And then flight is not just running off. It's like when my uncle didn't show up the day we put my grandmother in an assisted living facility because he thought he needed to detail his car that day, he was in flight. And he's a good man who loves his mama, and he would never have wanted to do that. But on that day, it's what happened to his body. His brain went out the window, and there he was working on his tires while we were doing the hardest thing. So really, this is all of us. I want you to notice that if you're in this room because you want to prevent violence and because you're concerned about intergenerational trauma and the way it gets passed on, we really need to be looking at this last line around freeze and submit. Because intergenerational trauma does not get passed on because people think, oh my gosh, that happened to me, so I'm going to do it to my youngin. It happens because I'm still in a freeze state from when it did happen. And I literally do not see that it is now happening to my child. So we really know the health and safety of our community and of our own families. My own family is going to be in the hands of whether I can live more often and more fully and connect and not stay in that freeze place. All right.